Amazing transformation, millionaire exposes hidden truth after black waitress' touching plea. The sound of clinking glasses and bubbling laughter filled the air of the bustling restaurant as Claire navigated through the maze of tables. Each smile she offered felt heavy, a mask guarding the fatigue etched in her features. Between shifts at the diner and her evening job as a bartender, she felt like a vessel, endlessly pouring energy into corners of her life while her own dreams collected dust. Time slipped through her fingers like water, and the lingering weight of economic pressure bore down on her like a vice. In the corner booth sat James, dressed sharply in tailored suits, the embodiment of success. Yet, his furrowed brow betrayed an inner turmoil that fascinated Claire. She tried to shake the thoughts away as she approached him with the evening special, but something about his contemplative solitude called to her. Was it arrogance or an unheeded vulnerability? She couldn't quite determine, but it stirred something raw within her. As she served him, the words slipped from her lips, a candid confession shared with another nearby table. She spoke of the sacrifices made for her ailing mother and younger sisters, how respect and roots were woven into every decision. Each syllable carried the weight of responsibility, stirring unease in her heart. Her life felt like a treadmill. No matter how fast she ran, she stayed in the same place, desperately wanting to step off. Watching James intently, her mind raced in spirals. Did her truth even resonate with him? Did success come with empathy? And why would a man like him genuinely care? Just as her thoughts began to spiral into discomfort, James approached her after his meal, intrigued by her passion. This was the moment when she thought she'd be pushing the walls of a prison, invisible to most and yet claustrophobic to her. Talking with him felt like a delicate balance on an emotional tightrope. They exchanged stories, their backgrounds, struggles, and dreams. As Claire articulated her vision for a project to empower marginalized voices, she saw a flicker in his eyes, a recognition of potential. But that twinkle sparked a deep fear. What if their partnership only reinforced the barriers that existed between them? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Having shared that brief pause, the tension loomed heavier than before. The moments of clarity drew forth a kaleidoscope of doubts. Claire confronted the reality that James's success could never take into account the relentless nuances of her struggle. A growing sense of unease forced her into a mental loop. Was he merely a benefactor, or could he understand the genuine barriers she faced? As days turned into planning sessions, Claire felt both exhilarated by potential and pulled back by fear. Just then, news from family reached her, a hidden truth that threatened to reshape her sense of identity. The intricate web of her lineage hung heavy in the air, ready to unravel everything she believed in. Claire stood on the brink of discovery, her heart thumping with questions only she could answer. Could she truly reclaim her narrative, or was she too entangled in a world that would always see her as less? The question echoed loudly, leaving her paralyzed, her dreams darkened by the storm of what was yet to come. James stood beside her, full of understanding, but could he reconcile that very privilege? The tension thickened with each passing second, and she felt time slipping again, this time into a chasm of uncertainty that loomed ominously ahead. Claire paced her small apartment, the walls rich with memories and dreams she had yet to chase. The news had landed like a stone in her stomach, a revelation of her family's past that threatened to shake every foundation she had built for herself. Her mother's anguished voice echoed in her mind, speaking of struggles, sacrifices, and truths long buried. She felt the air in the room grow thicker, almost suffocating as she reflected on her own reality against the backdrop of this newfound understanding. What did it mean to rediscover her roots? Was there power woven into that history, or merely an anchor that would drag her deeper into despair? The strategies she crafted to rise above her circumstances suddenly felt nosedived into uncertainty. Claire had always prided herself on her resilience, but this felt different. It was like discovering a part of herself that had been hidden under layers of choice and circumstance. In the days that followed, she began to explore ways to channel this revelation into fuel for her growth. With each passing moment next to James during their planning sessions, she noticed the stark contrast between them. His confidence stemmed from privilege, hers was carved from grit. He navigated conversations effortlessly, weaving connections where she felt she had to scream to be heard. Yet, in the silences that followed their discussions, Claire started formulating a plan that could utilize the depths of her family's narrative. She envisioned a series of workshops, not just for empowerment but as a circle of healing for those who had stumbled through their own histories. Then came the pivotal moment, a decision that clawed at her insides. She had hesitated to involve her mother in her plans, fearful of reopening wounds, but it felt disingenuous to exclude those very experiences that shaped her. Summoning courage, she called her mother, the weight of unspoken words heavy in the air. Claire could hear her mother's faint breath on the line, as if caught in a time that blurred with hesitation. "Mom, I need to talk," she said, her voice faltering. About what I found out." The awkward silence on the other end of the line threatened to consume her, but it shifted into a reluctant exchange as Claire shared her vision, recounting how the stories of their family could inspire change, not just for themselves but for countless others. To her surprise, her mother responded not with resistance but with tentative excitement. "We've kept this locked away, Claire. Maybe it's time to share." Claire's heart raced at that prospect. Could raw authenticity transcend barriers that often held her back? The idea morphed into something larger, a reclamation of their story tethered in strength and vulnerability. But then, doubt seeped in with its venomous whispers. Would their stories fall on deaf ears? Was there such a thing as empowerment when facing the invisible chains of expectation and societal limitation? Her fears simmered within, wrestling with the flicker of hope ignited by engagement. The next day in the diner, Claire felt her indecision ripple through her interactions. She managed to keep the service smiling, yet behind the laughter lay a brewing storm. James approached, catching her off guard with an offer to solidify their partnership, proposing to expand her idea into a robust platform. "Imagine voices like yours reaching hundreds, even thousands," he said, his enthusiasm palpable. But the question gnawed at her: did that vision really hold space for the authentic narratives of struggle, or would it morph into a gloss of survival that distilled their essence? As Claire stood at this crossroads, she felt something shift within her, a determination brewing, urging her to confront not just James's intentions but her own apprehensions. The need to articulate her worth, to challenge the entrenched biases she faced, beckoned with increasing urgency. But just as she prepared to voice her thoughts, an unsettling noise filtered through her mind, the truth about herself cast in stark relief. A quiet resolve arrived, mingled with impending fear. The moment had come for Claire to face not only the world outside but also the fear within that had kept her silent for too long. What she would discover next could either forge her identity or shatter it completely. At that moment, she tingled with a mix of anticipation and dread. The overwhelming intensity of her choices settled upon her shoulders as she knew that the confrontation she was about to engage in might change everything. Indeed, the very fabric of her reality hung in the balance. Claire's heart raced as the weight of her decisions loomed over her like a storm cloud, heavy with unspoken words. She needed to articulate her vision, to summon the courage to ensure her voice would not only be heard but also respected. The diner bustled around her, but she felt cocooned in a realm of self-doubt and determination, a paradox that defined her very essence. "James," she began, her voice firm yet edged with uncertainty. He glanced up, all eager attention, inspired by his own ambitions but blissfully unaware of the struggles deeper than surface-level aspirations. She could sense that he was caught in a whirlwind of social merits, while she was battling an undercurrent of history and identity. "What we're planning, it needs to be authentic," she continued, gathering her thoughts as though piecing together a fragile vessel of truth. It's not just about tapping into a market. It's about our story, about healing. If we're not careful, it could all feel disingenuous." James's brow furrowed, perhaps grappling with the weight of her words amidst the glitz of his vision. But Claire, think about the impact. Our platform could reach so many. Your story will resonate. You can't shy away from this opportunity for fear of being too real. Claire interrupted, her voice rising an octave, anger and passion igniting within her chest. This isn't some motivational seminar. We'll craft a narrative based on struggles, not just pretty words glossed over to sell a workshop. The tension crackled between them, palpable and raw. She felt an unfamiliar firmness penetrate her thoughts, a shift from passive participant to active creator of her own narrative. James studied her, and for a moment, Claire glimpsed the flicker of understanding in his eyes. It ignited a fire in her, emboldening her stance. I can't sell my pain, James. It's too precious for me to dilute it into a trend. The realization rushed through her veins, she was not just a voice but a vessel through which her family's history could shine a legacy worthy of respect. Okay. I didn't mean to strip it of its essence, he conceded, his lowered tone signaling respect despite the disparity in their backgrounds. I just thought. She shook her head, realizing the unparalleled chasm between their worlds. The privilege he enjoyed made it challenging for him to grasp the profundity of the struggle she intended to unveil. But instead of feeling disheartened, she found strength in the divide. It encouraged her to clarify her mission further to ensure that even if they ventured into this partnership, her voice would be amplified, not overshadowed. As they resumed their planning, the possibilities roared within her. Claire tracked the details of their sessions, her mind composing strategies and narratives while glimmers of her ancestral stories threaded through her consciousness. She envisioned workshops as spaces of liberation and connection, echoing the stories of those who had suffered in silence. The tension of confrontation propelled her toward clarity. This was her moment to embrace vulnerability. Days passed, and with each planning session, her resolve solidified. Yet, the thought of presenting this vision to her mother loomed like a specter. Would she be able to articulate everything she had gathered and realized in her own burgeoning narrative? The personal weight of that disclosure weighed heavily upon her heart. She finally set a date for their meeting, an evening filled with both promise and dread. Claire stared at herself in the mirror, the reflection staring back was a mirrored shard of her ancestors, a storm of emotion ready to break free. Are you ready for this? She whispered to her reflection, hearing the tremor of uncertainty echo back. The night shrouded her in resolve. Stepping into the kitchen, where her mother arranged the dinner table, she felt the gravitational pull of their intertwined fates. This would be the unveiling not just of a workshop but of the power of their very story. As her mother turned to greet her, Claire's heart began to race anew. The stakes had blown up. She wasn't just confronting her own fears, she was about to lay bare the lineage of resilience that ran through them like electricity. In that suspended moment, Claire felt the universe holding its breath, as though she balanced on the edge of destiny itself. Could she truly expose the layers of her own history without fear? The answer stirred deep within her, and with a breath that tasted of uncertainty and hope, she stepped forward, ready to embrace the challenge ahead. The candlelight flickered softly against the kitchen walls, casting shadows that danced like the doubts swirling in Claire's mind. She stood at the threshold, her heart a relentless drum echoing the weight of her impending confession. Each breath she took filled her with an acute awareness of time, how it has shaped her identity and burdened her family with stories waiting to be told. Claire, honey, are you all right? Her mother's voice cut through the thick air, pulling her back into the moment. She wore an apron dotted with flour, a stark contrast to the steely resolve forming within Claire. It was as if the fabric held together generations of familial strength and sacrifice, all wrapped up in this single kitchen. Yeah, just thinking, Claire replied, masking her trepidation with a smile that felt slightly foreign on her face. She walked toward the table, noting the familiar silverware polished to gleaming perfection, each piece a brushstroke in the canvas of their shared history. Her mother reached out a hand, brushing Claire's cheek gently. It's just us tonight. No distractions. You can always talk to me. There was concern etched in her eyes, yet Claire could see the ever-present expectation that layered their relationship like paint upon a wall, thick and ornate, but hiding cracks beneath. Claire took a deep breath, drawing strength from the very essence of their lineage. "Mom, there is something important I want to share with you. It's about my vision, the workshops." The words felt heavy, laden with implications she barely understood herself. The change in her mother's posture was immediate as she straightened, attention sharp. "What about the workshops?" In that moment, Claire's heart raced, mirroring the conflicts she faced within. Each word she chose mattered. "I want them to be authentic. I want to tell our story, the real story. Not just what sells but what truly represents who we are. Our struggles and our resilience." Her mother's expression softened, but Claire sensed a flicker of apprehension, a reflection of her own inner turmoil. "I understand wanting to share our history, but what if it's too much? What if it opens old wounds?" Claire felt a tightening in her chest at the mention of injuries left unhealed. "But Mom, isn't it time that our story was shared? Not to glorify pain, but to show how far we've come. I need to do this not just for myself, but for us, for everyone who has stood in our shoes and felt invisible." The silence hung like a curtain between them, heavy but charged with potential. Her mother was a fortress of strength, and yet, Claire felt the tremors of vulnerability beneath her facade. It was clear this conversation reached into the depths of shared memories and unacknowledged feelings. "I want to honor Grandma's sacrifices. All the years of quiet strength that built this family," Claire said, fighting the tide of emotions threatening to spill over. The ancestral stories of struggles, broken dreams, resilient hope thrummed inside her, refusing to be ignored any longer. "Do you truly believe that our past can connect with others? That it can heal?" Her mother finally asked, her tone both skeptical and curious. Claire's heart surged with determination. "Yes, I do. I think our truth can resonate. Imagine how many people might feel less alone, simply by knowing we've felt the same things. We could spark conversations, create something real." With every moment passing, Claire felt more empowered and yet, more desperate for acceptance from the one person her words mattered to the most. "What if I fail?" She blurted out suddenly, the vulnerability come crashing in waves. "What if I've misread the vision completely? But what if it changes lives?" Her mother countered gently, her voice like a soothing balm against the jagged edges of doubt. "What if this is your truth, and that's enough?" As those words sank in, Claire felt fortitude brushing against her fears. This was the spark she needed, the invitation to shed the layers of self-doubt that had stifled her for so long. But the greatest hurdle still lay ahead. She had to confront not only the rejection of her fear but the fear of acceptance itself. "Will you help me?" Claire finally asked, vulnerability bleeding into her voice. "Will you be a part of this?" Her mother paused, the weight of Claire's request hanging palpably in the air. As uncertainty flickered across her mother's features, Claire felt the storm inside her calm, replaced by a flicker of hope, the realization that she was not alone in this. They stood at the precipice of a new journey together, but with it came the awareness that their past would not let them move forward without confrontation. "Let us see where this journey takes us," her mother said, and for the first time, Claire felt the chains of doubt loosen. But as they embraced, the echoes of their shared history resonated ominously in the background. The calling to pursue their story was becoming increasingly clear, and yet Claire could feel the shadow of what lay ahead shaping another restless storm. The moment of truth approached. What challenges awaited them as they braved the unfurling narrative of their legacy? The sun peeked through the kitchen window, breaking the early morning stillness. Claire awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. She sat up, the thrill of unexpected courage racing through her veins. The conversation with her mother lingered in her mind, an echo of support she sorely needed. Today wasn't merely another day, it was a step further into the uncharted territory of her dreams. As she brewed her coffee, the rich aroma filled the space between thoughts and plans. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured the hot liquid into her favorite mug, one emblazoned with the word, courage. It was a steadfast reminder of why she needed to face the fears that had haunted her for years. Today, she would initiate the first workshop, an event that had morphed from a distant idea to a tangible reality, begging for action. With each sip, Claire mentally rehearsed her approach. The workshop would be a blend of storytelling and creative expression, but it demanded something more, a deeper connection with participants that transcended mere instruction. This was about sharing, healing, and empowering others to find their voices too. The thought of her grandmother's resilience fueled her resolve. She was giving space for the unspoken, the complex threads of struggle intertwined with triumph. Armed with determination, Claire reached for her laptop. She stared at the blank screen, her stomach twisting with a mix of excitement and apprehension. How to begin? The cursor blinked mockingly, but she would not let it deter her. Then she focused on a new plan. The personal narratives would not only be her guide but the cornerstone for this workshop. This story belonged to her family, and by extension, to those who had faced similar trials. One by one, her thoughts began to coalesce into a structure. She typed rapidly, weaving stories together like a tapestry, images of her grandmother, her mother's unyielding spirit, their collective fight against the tide of life's adversities. A rough draft materialized, each line imbued with the essence of her roots. Hours slipped away, the kitchen bathed in afternoon light. Yet, a shadow of doubt surfaced as Claire reviewed her notes. What if these stories were too painful? Would sharing them open old wounds not only for her family but for herself? Regret seeped into her thoughts, gnawing at her conviction. The weight of vulnerability pressed down on her, nearly halting her momentum. Yet, reflecting on the potential impact turned the tide. These stories had thrived amid silence for far too long. This was not just an opportunity for herself but a chance for others. Flashes of faces she imagined, looking back at her curious and hopeful, resonated like a mantra. With a deep breath, Claire resolved to invite her mother to the workshop. It was essential for the authenticity she longed to showcase. They needed to confront past hardships together, the memories swirling tenderly beneath layers of time. She envisioned the power of a joint narrative, both of them sharing the weight of their history, intertwining their individual journeys into a collective one. It might become a powerful testament to resilience and healing. Before she could second-guess herself, Claire picked up her phone and dialed her mother. The connection felt electric, both exhilarating and daunting. "Mom, I want us to share this experience," she said, her voice quaking with nerves. "What do you think about being part of the first workshop?" The silence stretched, and Claire's heart raced, anticipation mingled with fear. Would her mother embrace this new path or retreat into the comfort of silence? "Let us do it," came her mother's final reply, her voice laced with both apprehension and resolve. With that simple affirmation, Claire felt a rush of exhilaration surge through her. This partnership, each step into vulnerability, opened the door to healing they had long avoided. Togetherness sparked a newfound light in Claire, illuminating both their past and future. But as Claire hung up, she realized another layer awaited. She would need to confront her own fears, a direct challenge of what it meant to be vulnerable in front of strangers. The concept of authenticity was beautifully raw, but could she step fully into that light without reservation? The journey toward candor had begun, yet the hardest part lay ahead. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Claire's mind raced with anticipation. What personal demons would emerge in this unveiling, alongside the stories she'd bravely share? The next morning came with an air of disquiet. Claire sat at her kitchen table, notes sprawled before her like an intimidating puzzle she couldn't quite solve. The vibrant hues of dawn illuminated the sheets, yet her heart felt heavy with the weight of the upcoming workshop. She tapped her pen against the table, questioning her ability to guide others through the complexities of their own stories while grappling with her own tangled feelings. Images of her mother flooded her mind, every nuance of her expression, the simple yet profound words of acceptance still reverberating within her. Claire pondered the courage embedded within that moment. Could she replicate such bravery in herself as she stood in front of a room, sharing stories while inviting others to do the same. With a deep breath, she glanced out the window, observing the world awakening outside. Each bird's song seemed to echo her thoughts: courage, vulnerability, strength. She picked up her laptop, her fingers hovering above the keyboard, the familiar dread creeping back in. Opening her document, she found herself staring at her mother's name on several lines, intertwined with the essence of her family's struggles. This wasn't just about teaching, it was about forging connections, about confronting the hidden wounds that had lain untouched for far too long. Could she provide a safe space for others while grappling with her own insecurities? What if their collective stories revealed parts of her past she wasn't ready to face? As the clock ticked closer to the time of the workshop, Claire realized this wasn't merely a professional endeavor, it was a personal reckoning. Everything she had written was painstakingly honest, yet exposing those truths to an audience would require more than just courage. It demanded raw authenticity. Would she be capable of exposing her vulnerabilities without turning away? With fortitude, Claire recalled her grandmother's unyielding spirit, a woman who had weathered storms with grace and defiance. It was time to leverage that legacy, to embrace her vulnerability not as a weakness but as a profound strength that could disarm others and lighten the burdens they carried. She began to weave a narrative during breakfast, focusing not only on what she wanted to convey but also on the messages she hoped to extract from her participants. Every challenge she faced was an invitation to delve into their experiences. The anticipation was thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. Just then, her phone buzzed, pulling her from her reverie. It was a text from her mother: "Are you ready for tomorrow?" With a pang of anxiety, Claire typed back, "I don't know. I want to be, but what if I can't handle it?" Seconds ticked by before her mother's response appeared. "You've handled so much already. We're in this together, remember?" The tenderness of her mother's words brought a warmth that dispelled much of her apprehension. Claire smiled softly, recognizing the power of their shared path. She was no longer merely a facilitator, she would be a partner in vulnerability and strength. As her thoughts settled into a clearer focus, she revisited her draft, refining it with newfound clarity. Each line began to pulse with honesty, fueled by the depth of her own transformations. Yet, a nagging voice persisted. Were these stories ready to breathe, or would they be suffocated by her own fears? With every keystroke, she faced a crucible. Would she rise as a beacon of courage, lighting the way for others to uncover their truths? Or would she falter, retreating into the comforting shadows of doubt and trepidation? As dusk settled in, Claire closed her laptop and looked out at the cityscape, the horizon painted in soft pastels of hope and uncertainty. The workshop was upon her, a precipice between where she had been and where she desperately wanted to go. The moment loomed large, the air thick with the promise of transformation. In her heart, she sensed a shift, something deep and powerful flickered to life. It was the urging of her own story, demanding to be voiced. She could feel that the time had come to face the fears that lingered, to not just step into the light, but to embody it. What would happen if I fully embraced this? Claire whispered to herself, her mind racing at the possibilities. Little did she know, the answer was about to reveal itself, as unanticipated challenges awaited her at the dawn of the workshop, threatening to test her resolve and the stories she had finally chosen to share. The morning sun crept through the blinds, casting stripes of light across Claire's bedroom wall. She lay awake, the uncertainty swirling in her chest refusing to fade, despite the echoes of her mother's encouragement. Today was the day the workshop officially began. In just a few hours, and the weight of her own expectations loomed large. As she rose from bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was not just an event. It felt like a pivotal moment in her life, a juncture where personal and professional realms would collide under the scrutiny of eager, yet vulnerable, seekers. After a quick shower and a cup of coffee that barely penetrated her nerves, Claire dressed meticulously, choosing a tailored blazer over a flowing blouse. The colors felt empowering, yet she still caught her reflection in the mirror with an unsettling knot in her stomach. Who would be the real Claire today, the capable facilitator or the hesitant woman choked by her own doubts? To distract herself, she gathered her materials, her palms brushing over the pages of stories she had decided to share. With every paper and note, she felt the laughter and tears woven into her experiences, but the nervous tension coiling in her gut told her the stories weren't merely for others, they begged for her own acknowledgement. As she closed her folder, she noticed the time tick, tick, tick. Each sound echoed in her mind like an alarm that wouldn't cease. Arriving at the workshop venue, Claire took deep breaths, seeking calmness in the marvelous space. It was bright, a sunlit room adorned with vibrant artwork, mirroring the diversity of stories she hoped to cultivate. She set out her materials on the table and glanced up at the seated participants slowly trickling in. Each face was a canvas of unique backgrounds and fears. Her heart raced with the thought that they were all seeking something from her. Expectations are a burden, her grandmother's voice rang in her head. Offer your truth, and the rest will follow. Claire realized that perhaps it was time to shift her mindset. What if she reframed the narrative? Instead of being their guide, what if she simply stood alongside them, exploring the depths together? The moment the workshop officially commenced, she introduced herself. Her voice faltered slightly, but she pressed on, sensing a burgeoning connection with her audience. As she shared the framework for the day, Claire noticed individuals in the room nodding, drawing her in. Maybe, just maybe, this could be a space for collective honesty. The thoughts of inadequacy began to dissipate as she remembered that vulnerability was a bridge, not a chasm. Encouraged by the atmosphere, she unveiled her story, one about heartbreak and resilience, laced with the lessons from her mother. As she shared, she could feel herself unlocking a part of her that had stayed dormant for too long. The more she spoke, the lighter she felt, and the collective energy shifted. Then, as participants began to share their own truths, Claire felt her heart quicken. A young woman in the corner stood up, her voice trembling. When life threw challenges at me, I became invisible. The word struck a chord. Claire felt compelled to engage her further. Tell us more, she urged gently, leaning in as the room hung on the woman's next words. The exchange that followed unfolded beautifully, layered with shared experiences and raw emotions circling within the room. Claire realized that their willingness to be vulnerable wasn't just elevating them as individuals, it was cementing her role as a communal participant in their journey. Yet just as they spiraled into deeper discussions, a sudden commotion interrupted. A heated argument erupted outside the door, cutting through the camaraderie. Voices escalated, hushed tones ruptured into chaos, pulling everyone's attention away from the vulnerable space they had just built. As the door swung open, Claire's eyes widened at the sight of a distraught figure, a man whose anger seemed palpable, flooding their sanctuary with tension. What did I get myself into? Claire wondered, feeling a mix of dread and helplessness. The unforeseen confrontation threatened to dismantle everything they had begun to forge together. Would she allow fear to silence her, or could she use this as another opportunity for growth and clarity? Claire took a steadying breath, knowing that the choice before her wasn't just about the workshop, it was about confronting her fears head-on. The moment was not just a test, it was an unexpected chapter unveiling itself, one that brought her vulnerabilities and strengths into sharp relief. Determined, she stepped forward. We can handle this together, she declared, voice firm against the clamor, ready to embrace whatever came next. Would she continue to rise to the occasion or retreat back to her insecurities? The answer awaited her just beyond the threshold of uncertainty. Claire's heart raced as she faced the chaotic scene at the door, and she willed her feet to move forward. The moment she stepped into that uncertainty, she felt the weight of her role shift from being a mere facilitator to an instigator of change. Please, let us take a step back, Claire called out, her voice raised yet steady. The man, whose anger radiated almost like a physical force, paused, caught off guard by her unexpected assertiveness. The air in the room thickened and the participants shifted uneasily in their seats, but Claire held her ground. As he turned his gaze toward her, Claire saw something deeper beneath the fury, a flicker of pain, maybe even fear. She drew on her training, connecting her feelings to his. I understand that you're upset, and it's okay to feel that way. We're here to listen. Can you tell us what's troubling you? The man's eyes widened, surprise mixed with confusion played across his face. It seemed that her invitation to share not only disarmed him but also created a moment of vulnerability in himself. He opened his mouth to speak, but words failed him at first. Instead, he looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the participants, feeling the weight of their collective attention. As he struggled to articulate his thoughts, Claire felt something shift within her. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a moment of potential growth for everyone present, herself included. She could see her participants absorbing the scene, their varied backgrounds colliding in this unexpected moment, nimbly weaving a tapestry of human experience. "Let us all take a deep breath together," Claire suggested gently, placing her hand over her chest, willing her racing heart to steady. "We're all carrying something right now, and it's important to acknowledge that." The room inhaled deeply in unison, their voices gently blending into the silence that followed. Claire noticed the tension easing slightly, the anger in the man's posture softening. "Try to express what you feel," she urged him, her tone calm and empathetic. "Sometimes just saying it out loud can help." Finally, the man spoke, his voice shaky but growing stronger with each syllable. "I feel overlooked, like I don't matter. Every day feels like a fight just to be seen." As his words poured out, Claire felt something break loose within herself. Memories flooded her mind. So many times she had felt invisible, dismissed, and powerless in moments that mattered. This was her chance to not only support someone else but to confront her own hidden insecurities. "Thank you for sharing that," she said firmly, understanding dawning within her. "I see you. We all see you. And your pain is valid. You're not alone in this." The collective murmurs of agreement from her participants formed ripples of solidarity. It was a pivotal moment, not only for the man but for Claire, who realized that showing compassion was as crucial as finding her voice. She turned to her workshop participants, willing them to also step forward, becoming both reflectors and responders. "Let's embrace that honesty right now, together." As they began to engage in a dialogue, each contribution alone weaving into a fabric of shared vulnerability, Claire felt her doubts begin to dissipate. With every story shared, she uncovered layers of her self-strength she had long kept masked by fear. It became clearer that personal development didn't happen just in isolation, real growth flourished in the connection fostered between people, even in moments of turmoil. Yet, just when the group began to find their rhythm, whispers of discontent rippled through the audience. A woman raised her hand, her expression determined yet anxious. "But how do we take this feeling of connection back into our lives afterward? What if it's fleeting?" Claire hesitated, the magnitude of that question hitting her squarely. Perhaps this was the greatest challenge she would face today, the prospect of maintaining this newfound clarity and connection in a world that often pushed back against vulnerability. She took a deep breath, knowing that this could potentially anchor her entire approach moving forward. How could she ensure not just herself, but also her participants, would carry this moment beyond these walls? "Let us explore that together," Claire said, eyes brightening with the challenge. The journey of self-discovery was far from over. It was only just beginning, and perhaps the answers awaited in their own readiness to confront the depths of their lives outside these moments together. And as she prepared to dive into the discussion, she was acutely aware of an alarmingly profound truth: the real challenge wasn't just managing chaos, it was ensuring that moments like these had the power to transform lives permanently. Life had opened a door she thought she had closed long ago, and the commitment to walk through it now seemed more urgent than ever. What would this newfound clarity lead her to next? The true challenge loomed ahead, promising tumultuous growth. Claire felt a burst of energy course through her as the question hung in the air, reverberating with the weight of expectation. The pulsing need to respond swirled within her, mingling with trepidation. This was no ordinary discussion, it was a reckoning not just for the participants but for her. Addressing that woman's concern meant digging deep, traversing the often painful terrain of vulnerability. "How do we embrace connection and ensure it isn't fleeting?" she echoed softly, probing the depths of her own thoughts. Only moments ago, she was operating on instinct, now she needed a strategic approach. Faculty of good intentions was not enough, she had to transform sentiments into a structured methodology that was scalable beyond this intimate setting. You can begin by keeping a journal, Claire suggested, her mind racing. By jotting down feelings, insights, and revelations, participants could concretely document their growth, creating a living testament to their journey. It's about making space for reflection. Some nodded, intrigued, while others furrowed their brows, grappling with the concept. The hesitation among them presented a challenge. She needed to inspire belief, not just in the exercise but in themselves. When you leave these walls, you won't just be Claire's participants. You will embody the conversations we've had here today. You hold the lessons in you, they're part of your fabric, she continued, words laced with urgency. You need to own that. Make it a practice to talk about these experiences with others, reach out to those who matter in your lives. A voice chimed in from a corner, breaking through her momentum. But we're used to silence. It's easier to hide, a middle-aged woman lamented, her vulnerability surfacing in her tone. How do we break that cycle? Claire sensed the underlying fear that lurked beneath those words, the decades of habit woven into a tapestry of silence. Instinctively, she leaned forward. Silence won't bring change. You must challenge the beliefs that insist you remain unheard. Acknowledge your truths, speak them into existence. You've already taken the first step by sharing your thoughts here. Silence enveloped the room again as Claire gazed into the faces surrounding her, searching for connections. She felt their stories, and in return, they were igniting something within her, an insatiable desire to learn, not just as a facilitator, but as a person shaped by this very journey. How do you perceive yourself? She asked, shifting tactics. What happens when you identify as the person who matters? Isn't that the change you seek? The responses blossomed like flowers in spring, tentative and uncertain at first but gradually more daring. Discussions of identity unfurled like petals, revealing deeper narratives of personal longing and aspirations. Claire felt invigorated. The reflections not only solidified her understanding of others but also illuminated her own doubts and strengths she had yet to confront. As the dialogue deepened, Claire felt more grounded. This was not merely about sustaining fleeting connections, it was a call to cultivate resilience and authenticity in the face of the relentless world outside. She was charting a new course, not just for them, but for herself, integrating the lessons of empathy and vulnerability into her professional ethos. Her thoughts sharpened, crystallizing around a central truth: if she wanted to maintain that momentum beyond these walls, she must embody the values they were discussing. How could she share her journey courageously and invite them to witness her growth? Here's the deal, she said, determination threading through her voice. Let us make a pact. Commit to being seen. In whatever small way, promise that you won't allow fear of silence to define you. Connect with me after today. I'm putting myself on the line too, let us keep this movement alive together. The energy shifted again, as Claire felt a collective determination building. It elevated her. This was no longer a workshop but a shared mission to nurture their budding aspirations and confront their apprehensions head-on. As the group wrapped up their discussion, Claire felt gratitude surge within her. She was no longer that unsure facilitator. She was stepping into herself, unearthing a leader she never realized was lying in wait. The opportunity to harness this transformative moment loomed large, yet mysterious. Yet amid the exhilaration, a daunting thought darted across her mind, a certainty that challenges lay ahead, ones that would put her commitment to the test. Could she keep her pledge to herself and her participants? The foundation was laid, but the storm of reality awaited. Was she truly ready to confront the authenticity she had stirred in those vulnerable hours? Claire found herself on the edge of a precipice, wondering what it would take to leap fully into that uncharted territory of her own potential. The atmosphere swirled with anticipation, the journey was spiraling into unknown depths. Where would this newfound commitment take her in the days to come? Claire stood in her kitchen, the warm sunlight filtering through the window as she meticulously prepared for what would be a transformative follow-up to the workshop. This time, she wouldn't just be accompanying her participants on their journey, she would be leading her own. The past few weeks had crystallized her thoughts, revealing layers of strength and purpose hidden beneath her self-doubt. After that pivotal workshop, she had committed herself to this new reality, a world where her voice echoed beyond the confines of insecurity and doubt. Her plan was clear. Claire envisioned a series of follow-up sessions that would not only empower those individuals striving to reclaim their narratives but also fortify her own voice in the process. As she gathered her notes, her mind raced with ideas. The central theme of these follow-ups would revolve around the power of authenticity. She would curate a curriculum blending storytelling, creative expression, and practical exercises, urging participants to engage their vulnerabilities. They would cultivate spaces not just to share but to embrace their histories with pride. Each page she turned added fuel to the fire in her heart. She felt alive with purpose, no longer a pawn on the chessboard of her life but a player shaping her own narrative. Claire took a moment to reflect on how far she had come from that first night of uncertainty in the workshop. Now, as she crafted her vision, she couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu, the same anxiety creeping into her veins. Yet this time, it was laced with excitement, not fear. She had learned to harness her vulnerability, transforming it into an authentic connection with others who shared in the struggle. "Mom, can you come into the living room?" Claire called, needing her mother's steady presence as she prepared the session materials. Her mother entered, a supportive smile gracing her face, radiating warmth and encouragement. "Claire, honey, you look ready to conquer the world," her mother said, brushing a stray hair back from Claire's face. "Thanks, Mom. I need you here to help me with something." Claire laid out her vision before her mother, explaining her new approach and the workshops she dreamed to implement. Her mother listened intently, offering thoughtful insights. The trust they had forged reopened a cascade of shared understanding and authentic partnership steeped in their stories. Her mother's final words of wisdom rang true: "Remember, your strength lies in your authenticity. You've already proven that." The next few days were a whirlwind of planning and outreach. Claire crafted a webpage to promote the follow-up series, detailing her vision and inviting participants from her last session to return. Yet as the numbers swelled with registration forms, Claire felt the old wave of uncertainty threatening to crash over her once more. She took a moment to breathe and revisit the powerful truths she had shared in that workshop: her stories, her upbringing, and the empowerment rooted in vulnerability. It reminded her that it wasn't about perfection but progress. Growth would come with missteps, and embracing each moment was the essence of the journey. With newfound clarity, Claire launched the series and prepared for the first session. She set the room up with anticipation, arranging chairs in a circle, creating an environment for open dialogue. As people filtered in, almost like a magnetic pull, she felt their energy stir against the backdrop of her own nerves. When the session commenced, she began by reflecting on her own journey, the fear and exhilaration mingling in her stomach. With each story she shared, she felt the barriers between her and her participants dissolving further. They were no longer strangers together, they formed a collective narrative woven from the very threads of adversity. "Listen to each other's truth," she encouraged. "Your stories hold immense power." The participants embarked on sharing their own struggles, and Claire felt the room pulse with a rhythm of vulnerability. The conversations deepened, and as she watched individuals pushing past their fears and supporting one another, her heart swelled. Claire experienced a profound understanding that each story spoken aloud manifested healing, not just for the individual but for the entire group. Days turned into weeks as they delved deeper into these experiences. Each session flourished, and Claire ensured an ongoing space for participants to take ownership of their narratives, and in doing so, she found herself reclaiming her own voice more powerfully than she imagined. A particularly striking moment came when a former participant shared how, inspired by Claire's model of vulnerability, she'd taken steps to confront long-standing family issues. Claire felt honored to witness that metamorphosis, reflecting on the reciprocity of growth that unfolded in those shared spaces. Then came the day of true connections, an event where participants would showcase their stories through various forms: art, spoken word, and personal narration. Claire felt exhilarated yet nervous, it was the culmination of several weeks of hard work and courage, wrapped in the very essence of everything they had been cultivating. The audience members streamed in, creating an electric atmosphere. As she prepared herself backstage, Claire closed her eyes, summoning the well of strength from her earlier experiences. She would step on that stage not as just the facilitator of the project, but as a symbol of resilience, empowerment, and triumph over adversity. When her turn came, Claire walked on stage, heart pounding with anticipation. Clenching the microphone, she focused on her participants facing her, beaming with pride and trembling with emotion. "This moment is not just about me," she began, her voice steady with conviction. "This is a celebration of us, our struggles, our triumphs, and the bridges we've built together. Every story shared has been a ripple, forging connections that empower us to own our voices. Today, we stand united, turning pain into purpose." As she transitioned into her narrative, a hush enveloped the audience. Claire bared her heart, ushering them through moments of vulnerability, a weaving of their stories through her own lens. With every word spoken, she felt the transformative energy pulsate, awakening a force that drove her forward. Once her story concluded, applause erupted, enveloping her in an embrace of acceptance. Claire stepped back, signaling the participants to take their turns, a chorus of colorful narratives cascading through the room. Each story magnified the shared journey, transcending personal limits and embracing an authentic camaraderie. As the final storyteller concluded, Claire felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment wash over her, a recognition of her growth. This mission had become more than a workshop, it evolved into a sanctuary where individuals reclaimed their truth while nurturing her own identity. In that moment, Claire realized that not only had she achieved what originally seemed out of reach, a platform embracing authenticity, but she had conquered the fear of confronting her own past. When the applause faded and the evening came to a close, Claire stood in amazement, recognizing a pivotal truth: she had stepped fully into her own light, resonating with the strength of vulnerability that she had long desired to embody. With renewed focus, Claire vowed to continue this journey, dedicated to crafting spaces where others could navigate their complexities, transforming remembrance and healing into a powerful legacy. As the space cleared, she looked towards her mother in the audience, gratitude blooming in her heart. They had forged an unbreakable bond through their stories, celebrating a shared journey of resilience that would echo in the hearts of those they touched. This transformation was not the end, it was merely the genesis of a life dedicated to authenticity, empowerment, and the undeniable beauty of being seen. Now, it's your turn to resonate with Claire's experience. If you found inspiration in her journey, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can influence your path. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, your support helps us reach hearts yearning for change. Comment below your reactions and theories about Claire's transformation. Share in the journey of growth that can unite us all. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to elevate their spirits. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions. The time is now.